He used his only clean school shirt to bandage a stranger's wound, accepting he'd be punished at school. When a fleet of luxury cars appeared at his doorstep the next morning, his hands trembled as he opened the envelope. The alarm buzzed at 4:30 a.m. Tyson's hand shot out from under the thin blanket, pressing the button before it could wake his siblings. The springs of his worn mattress creaked as he sat up in the darkness. His feet found the cold floor, and he shivered. Through the cracked window, he could hear the garbage truck making its rounds. The streetlight cast a dim orange glow through the threadbare curtains, enough for him to find his school uniform hanging on the back of his chair. He ran his fingers over the clean white shirt, his only one without stains or tears. "Marcus, time to get up," he whispered, gently shaking his 8-year-old brother's shoulder. "Got to help with breakfast before Mom leaves." In the kitchen, the fluorescent light flickered as Tyson pulled out the almost empty box of cereal and counted the remaining slices of bread. 4 pieces left. He'd skip breakfast today so his siblings could eat. His mother's quick footsteps came down the hallway. "Tyson, you up already, baby?" "Yes, Mom. Making breakfast for Marcus and Sophia." She appeared in the doorway, already wearing her cleaning uniform, her hair tied back neatly. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "You're such a good boy." She crossed the kitchen and hugged him tight. "I've got an extra shift at the Thompson building today. Won't be back until 7. I'll handle dinner," Tyson said, pouring milk into bowls. "Still got those noodles from yesterday. There's $20 in the drawer for emergencies." She kissed his forehead. "Your clean shirt looks nice. Make sure you keep it that way for the week." "Okay." "Yes, ma'am." She grabbed her purse, keys jingling. "Love you, baby. Be good at school." The door closed behind her, and Tyson heard her old Honda coughing to life in the driveway. He watched through the window as the taillights disappeared around the corner. Marcus stumbled into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. "Is there any cereal left?" "Sure is." Tyson pushed a bowl toward him. "Eat up. We got to get Sophia ready for daycare." While his siblings ate, Tyson ironed his white shirt carefully, making sure the collar lay flat. It was his pride, this shirt. Even with worn cuffs and a small patch near the hem, he kept it pristine. The other kids at Oakland Central might have new uniforms every semester, but none were cleaner than his. At 7:15, they left the house. Tyson carried Sophia on his hip, her small arms wrapped around his neck, while Marcus walked beside them clutching his backpack. The morning air was cool and damp with fog rolling in from the bay. They passed the usual morning scene. Mrs. Rodriguez opening her corner store, the tired-looking men waiting at the bus stop, a group of high school kids huddled around someone's phone. A sleek black Tesla glided past, its windows tinted dark. Tyson watched it disappear down the street, wondering what it felt like to ride in something so expensive. After dropping Sophia at the daycare center and walking Marcus to his elementary school, Tyson checked his watch. 7:45. Plenty of time to make it to Oakland Central before the bell. He had a math test first period, and he'd studied hard all week. The fog was beginning to lift as he turned onto Mason Street, revealing the gray morning sky. The sidewalk here was cracked and uneven, with weeds pushing through the concrete. A puddle from yesterday's rain spread across the pavement ahead. That's when he heard it, a soft groan, almost lost in the sound of passing traffic. Tyson stopped. There, near the puddle, an elderly man lay on his side. His gray hair was disheveled, and his expensive-looking coat was soaked through on one side. "Sir?" Tyson approached cautiously. "Are you okay?" The man's eyes fluttered open, cloudy with confusion. I slipped. My hip." Tyson knelt beside him, his school bag forgotten on the ground. "Don't try to move, sir. I'll call for help." But when he reached for his phone, he remembered. The screen was cracked last week, and they couldn't afford to fix it yet. The old man's arm was bleeding where he'd scraped it against the concrete. Red seeped through his torn sleeve. "We need to stop that bleeding," Tyson said, looking around frantically. No one else was on the street. The cars passed by without slowing. Without hesitation, Tyson shrugged off his backpack and unbuttoned his clean, white shirt. The morning air raised goosebumps on his skin as he carefully folded the shirt into a makeshift bandage. "This might hurt a little, sir," he warned, pressing the fabric against the wound. The old man winced but didn't pull away. "Such a nice shirt," the man murmured. "You'll ruin it." "It's okay." Tyson smiled, though his stomach twisted at the thought of going to school in just his undershirt. "My mom always says helping others is more important than things." The man's eyes focused on Tyson's face. "What's your name, son?" "Tyson, sir." "Tyson Williams. Thank you." Tyson Williams. The man's hand found Tyson's and squeezed it weakly. "I'm Richard Thompson." A siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. Someone must have called 911 from one of the passing cars. Tyson stayed with Mr. Thompson until the ambulance arrived, holding the shirt bandage in place. As the paramedics lifted Mr. Thompson onto a stretcher, Tyson grabbed his backpack. The school bell would be ringing any minute now. "Wait," Mr. Thompson called out. "Your shirt." But Tyson was already running, his undershirt thin against the morning chill, knowing he was about to face Mrs. Peterson, the strictest coordinator at Oakland Central, and explain why he'd broken the dress code on test day. His feet pounded against the sidewalk as he ran, each step taking him closer to what he knew would be trouble. But somewhere deep inside, past the worry and the fear of punishment, he knew he'd made the right choice. The school building came into view, its brick walls stern and imposing. The late bell rang just as he reached the front steps, its harsh sound echoing off the empty courtyard. Tyson took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and pushed open the heavy doors, ready to face whatever consequences awaited him. Students turned to stare as he walked through the hallway in his undershirt. Someone snickered, but Tyson kept his head high, even as Mrs. Peterson's clicking heels approached from around the corner. Mrs. Peterson's heels stopped clicking. The hallway fell silent. "Mr. Williams," her voice cut through the air like ice. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Tyson turned to face her, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. "Mrs. Peterson, I can explain. My office. Now." She pointed down the corridor, her silver bracelet catching the fluorescent light. Inside her office, the clock on the wall ticked loudly. 8:15 a.m. The math test had started 15 minutes ago. "Where is your uniform shirt, Mr. Williams?" Mrs. Peterson sat behind her desk, her reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose. "I used it to help someone, ma'am." Tyson's voice came out smaller than he intended. "There was an old man who fell on Mason Street. He was bleeding. An elderly man?" Her eyebrows rose. "And you expect me to believe you gave up your shirt to help this person?" "Yes, ma'am. His name is Mr. Thompson. He fell near the big puddle by the corner store. His arm was cut pretty bad." Mrs. Peterson's fingers drummed on her desk. "Thompson, you say?" "Yes, ma'am. Richard Thompson." The ambulance took him away. She reached for her phone, her red nails clicking against the screen. After a moment, her eyes widened slightly. "Stay here," she ordered, standing up. "Don't move." Through the office window, Tyson watched her hurry down the hallway to the principal's office. His stomach growled, reminding him of the breakfast he'd skipped. The memory of the morning played in his mind. Mr. Thompson's confused eyes, the blood seeping through his expensive coat, the sound of the ambulance siren. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably his mom. She always checked in after her first shift. But he couldn't answer, not here in the office. Not with his broken screen showing only half the messages. Mrs. Peterson returned with Principal Harris, their faces serious. "Tyson," Principal Harris said, closing the door behind him. "We've confirmed there was indeed an incident this morning involving Richard Thompson. Can you tell us exactly what happened?" So Tyson told them about hearing the groan, seeing Mr. Thompson on the ground, trying to help him up, about using his shirt as a bandage because there was nothing else around. "And you didn't know who he was?" Principal Harris asked. "No, sir. Just that he needed help." The adults exchanged looks. "Tyson," Mrs. Peterson said, her voice softer now. "Richard Thompson is Robert Thompson's father." The name hung in the air. Everyone knew Robert Thompson. His company's tower dominated the Oakland skyline. His face appeared on local news whenever he donated millions to charity. I didn't know," Tyson stammered. "We need to call your mother," Principal Harris said. "Do you have her number?" "She's working, sir. At the Thompson building, actually. She's a cleaner there." Another significant look passed between the adults. "I see." Principal Harris straightened his tie. "Well, you missed your math test. Under the circumstances, we'll arrange for you to take it tomorrow. But sir, Mrs. Peterson interjected, the dress code. I think we can make an exception today. He turned to Tyson. Do you have a spare shirt in your locker? No, sir. That was my only clean one. The principal sighed. Mrs. Peterson, please get him one from the lost and found. She left and returned with a wrinkled white shirt that smelled faintly of old detergent. It was too big, the sleeves hanging past Tyson's hands. You can return to class now, Principal Harris said. But Tyson, next time you find someone in trouble, try calling 911 first. Yes, sir. In the hallway, Tyson finally checked his phone. 3 messages from his mom. Hope your test goes well, baby. Just finished at the bank. Heading to Thompson Building now. Love you. Make me proud today. His fingers hovered over the cracked screen. How could he tell her what happened? That he'd ruined his only good shirt? That he'd missed the test he'd studied so hard for? The day dragged on. In each class, students whispered and stared at his oversized shirt. During lunch, he sat alone, picking at the free meal the cafeteria provided, overhearing snippets of conversation. Did you hear? The Thompson guy. Richest family in Oakland. That poor kid's going to be in so much trouble. By final bell, the story had grown. Some said Mr. Thompson had been having a heart attack. Others claimed Tyson had fought off muggers. One girl swore her cousin saw the whole thing and that Robert Thompson himself had shown up in a helicopter. Tyson walked home slowly, the borrowed shirt flapping around him in the afternoon breeze. The puddle where he'd found Mr. Thompson had dried up, leaving only a dark stain on the concrete. Outside their house, Mrs. Rodriguez from the corner store waved him over. Tyson, is it true? Everyone's talking about it. They say you helped old Mr. Thompson. Yes, ma'am. He shifted his backpack uncomfortably. Dios mío. Do you know who that man is? His son owns half of Oakland. Wait until your mama hears. Please, Tyson interrupted. I need to get inside. My siblings will be home soon. He unlocked the door with shaking hands. Inside, the house felt emptier than usual, the silence heavy with unspoken worries. He changed out of the borrowed shirt and hung it carefully on a hanger. His own shirt was probably in a hospital trash bin by now, stained with the blood of one of Oakland's wealthiest residents. The afternoon light slanted through the windows as he tried to focus on homework. But his mind kept wandering to Mr. Thompson. Was he okay? Would his son be angry about what happened? Would they try to blame Tyson somehow? A car door slammed outside. Then another. And another. Tyson went to the window. His heart stopped. 3 black luxury cars had parked along their street. Men in suits were stepping out, their shoes gleaming in the late afternoon sun. One opened the back door of the middle car, and a tall figure emerged, straightening an expensive jacket. Even from his window, Tyson recognized him from the news. Robert Thompson. A neighbor's dog started barking. Curtains twitched in nearby houses. More people gathered on their porches to watch. Tyson's phone buzzed again. His mom. Heard something happened this morning. On my way home now. Are you okay, baby? Before he could reply, someone knocked on the front door. 3 sharp, authoritative raps that seemed to echo through the entire house. Tyson stood frozen, staring at the door, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. The knock came again. Everything he'd worried about all day crashed together in his mind. The ruined shirt, the missed test, his mom working extra shifts to make ends meet, and now Robert Thompson himself, standing on their cracked concrete steps, waiting for someone to answer. The knock came a 3rd time. Tyson's feet felt glued to the floor. His phone buzzed. Marcus, some fancy cars outside school. Everyone talking about you. What happened? Before he could answer, the sound of his mother's Honda engine cut through the afternoon quiet. He watched through the window as she parked across the street, her cleaning uniform still on, confusion clear on her face as she took in the scene. Robert Thompson turned toward her car. Their eyes met. She froze halfway out of the driver's seat. Ms. Williams? Thompson's voice carried clearly through the evening air. I'm Robert Thompson. I believe your son helped my father this morning. Tyson's mom straightened up, smoothing her uniform. Is he okay? Your father. Thanks to your son, yes. May we come inside to talk? She glanced at their house, the peeling paint, the crooked mailbox, the weed-filled garden. "Of course, Mr. Thompson." Tyson finally managed to move, opening the door as his mother climbed the steps. She squeezed his shoulder as she passed, her hand trembling slightly. "Baby, what happened to your shirt?" she whispered. Before he could answer, Robert Thompson stepped into their small living room, ducking slightly under the low door frame. Two men in suits followed, remaining by the door. "Tyson," Thompson said, extending his hand. "I'm Robert Thompson. Thank you for helping my father this morning." Tyson shook his hand, noticing how soft it felt compared to his mother's work-roughened fingers. "Please sit," his mom offered, quickly gathering old newspapers from their worn couch. "Ms. Williams," Thompson began, settling into the cushions. "My father told me everything. How your son found him after his fall. How he used his own shirt to stop the bleeding. The doctors say your son's quick action prevented a much worse situation." She looked at Tyson, pride and worry mixing in her expression. "We always taught him to help others, like when Dad needed help." The words slipped out before Tyson could stop them. The room went silent. His mother's face tightened. "Tyson," she said quietly. "No, it's different, right?" His voice shook. "Because Mr. Thompson is rich. Because his son owns buildings. Dad just needed money for his gambling debts, but nobody helped him. Nobody helped us when he left. Baby, please. I used my shirt because it was right, not because of who he is. I didn't even know." Tyson felt tears burning in his eyes. "But now everyone's making a big deal, and you had to leave work early, and I missed my test." And his mother pulled him into a tight hug, her familiar scent of cleaning products and discount shampoo wrapping around him. "I'm sorry," he mumbled into her shoulder. "Don't be sorry," Robert Thompson said, his voice gentler now. "You're right. You helped my father because it was the right thing to do. That's exactly why I'm here." He nodded to one of the men by the door, who stepped forward with a leather briefcase. "The doctors are keeping my father overnight for observation, but he's asking to see you. He wants to thank you properly." Thompson accepted an envelope from the man. "And I'd like to thank you too." Tyson's phone buzzed again. "Sophia's daycare. Reminder, payment overdue. Please settle balance by Friday." His mother's hand tightened on his shoulder. She'd seen the message too. "Mr. Thompson," she started, "it's very kind of you, but we don't need." "Mom?" Tyson looked up at her. "Remember what you said when Dad left? That sometimes pride costs more than it's worth?" The memory hung between them. 3 years ago, sitting in this same room, counting coins from her tip jar, trying to make rent after their father disappeared with their savings. "My father told me something interesting," Thompson said, watching them. He said that while Tyson was helping him, they talked. About school. About family. About dreams. He placed the envelope on their coffee table. "He mentioned you work in our building, Ms. Williams." "Yes, sir. Morning shift cleaning crew. 2 jobs, I understand. Plus raising 3 children alone." She straightened her back. "We manage. I'm sure you do. But everyone needs help sometimes. Even my father, as Tyson proved today." Thompson smiled. "This isn't charity, Ms. Williams. This is an investment in character." Outside, more neighbors had gathered. Through the window, Tyson could see Mrs. Rodriguez gesturing excitedly to someone on her phone. The street hadn't seen this much activity since the police came looking for his father. His mother picked up the envelope with shaking hands. "What my father noticed most," Thompson continued, "wasn't just Tyson's willingness to help. It was his understanding of sacrifice. Using his only clean shirt, knowing he'd face consequences. That's the kind of character that deserves nurturing." More car doors slammed outside. Marcus and Sophia's voices carried through the open window, excited and confused. "Mom?" Sophia's voice called. "Why are there fancy cars? Your siblings?" Thompson asked, standing. "Perfect timing. Because this isn't just about Tyson. This is about your whole family." The front door opened. Marcus and Sophia stood there, backpacks still on, eyes wide at the scene in their living room. "Mr. Thompson," Tyson said suddenly, "is your father really okay?" "Thanks to you, yes. In fact," Thompson checked his watch, "he's probably watching this right now. I had a camera crew document everything." "What?" Tyson's mother gasped. Thompson smiled. "My father insisted. He said a story like this deserves to be told. A young man who gave up his only clean shirt to help a stranger, not knowing or caring who that stranger was. He said it restored his faith in humanity. Tyson looked down at his borrowed shirt, too big and wrinkled. 3 years ago, his father had walked out that door with everything they had, leaving them with nothing but bills and broken promises. Now Robert Thompson stood in the same spot, holding out an envelope that could change everything. His mother's hand still shook as she opened it. The light from the setting sun streamed through their window, catching the tears in her eyes as she read the contents. Outside, cameras flashed. Tomorrow, their story would be everywhere. But right now, in their small living room with the worn furniture and peeling wallpaper, time seemed to stand still. The envelope held more than money. It held possibility, hope, a future that 3 hours ago, when Tyson had knelt beside a fallen stranger in the morning fog, had seemed impossible. Marcus tugged at his sleeve. "Tyson? What's happening?" Before he could answer, more car lights swept across their front window. His mother looked up from the envelope, fresh tears on her cheeks. "Baby," she whispered, "your life is about to change." More cars pulled up outside the Williams house. Black SUVs with tinted windows lined both sides of their narrow street. Men with cameras hopped out, setting up equipment on the patchy lawn. Ms. Williams, one of Thompson's assistants, stepped forward. "We'd like to document this moment, if you'll allow it." She looked around their small living room, at the second-hand furniture, the water stain in the corner ceiling, the frayed carpet. "Now? But the house." "The house is perfect," Robert Thompson said. "It's real. That's what matters." Sophia tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mama, why are there cameras?" "Because your brother did something special, baby." She wiped her eyes. "Something very kind." The camera crew filed in, squeezing into the corners of their living room. Bright lights clicked on, making the peeling wallpaper even more noticeable. "Just act natural," the director said, adjusting his headset. "Pretend we're not here." Tyson almost laughed. Natural? With 5 cameras pointed at them? With Robert Thompson sitting on their salvaged couch? With his borrowed shirt hanging off his shoulders like a dress? "Mr. Thompson," his mother said, still holding the envelope. This is too much." "Actually," Thompson replied, "I don't think it's enough." He nodded to another assistant, who brought forward a leather portfolio. "There's something else we need to discuss." More car doors slammed outside. Through the window, Tyson saw Mrs. Rodriguez passing out cups of coffee to the gathering crowd. The entire neighborhood had come out to watch. "First," Thompson continued, "I spoke with Oakland Prep Academy this afternoon." Tyson's heart skipped. Oakland Prep, the private school on the hill where the rich kids went, where the parking lot was full of cars like the ones now lining their street. They've agreed to offer Tyson a full scholarship. Starting immediately, the room went silent except for the whir of cameras. "But," his mother's voice shook, "that school costs $45,000 per year, yes, through graduation." Thompson smiled. "Including books, uniforms, and a new laptop." Marcus's eyes went wide. "Tyson's leaving our school?" "If he wants to," Thompson said. "It's his choice." All eyes turned to Tyson. He thought about Oakland Central, the crowded classrooms, the outdated textbooks, the metal detectors at every entrance. Then he thought about the kids from Oakland Prep with their pressed uniforms and confident walks. "Could I?" He swallowed hard. "Could I still see my friends?" "Of course, baby," his mother said quickly. "This isn't about leaving anything behind. It's about moving forward." Another car pulled up outside. This one was different, a white medical transport van. Thompson stood. "And speaking of moving forward, there's someone else who wanted to be here." The front door opened. 2 medical assistants helped an elderly man in a wheelchair cross the threshold. Richard Thompson wore a hospital gown under a plush robe, his arm bandaged professionally where Tyson's shirt had been. "There he is," the elder Thompson said, his eyes crinkling. "My young hero." Cameras swiveled to capture the moment. Tyson stood frozen, unsure what to do. "Come here, son." Mr. Thompson held out his good arm. "Let me look at you properly." Tyson moved forward, aware of every eye in the room on him. Up close, Mr. Thompson looked better than he had that morning. Some color back in his cheeks, his eyes clear and alert. "That shirt's a bit big on you." the old man said with a gentle smile. It's from Lost and Found, sir, since I used mine to save an old fool who should have watched where he was walking. Mr. Thompson took Tyson's hand. Do you know what I thought about, lying there in that puddle? Tyson shook his head. I thought about how many people must have driven past. How many saw me fall, but didn't stop. Then this young man comes along. No phone to call for help, wearing his only clean shirt. And without hesitation, he stops to help a stranger. The cameras move closer. Someone sniffled, maybe his mother, maybe one of the crew. When I was your age, Mr. Thompson continued, I was poor too. Lived in a house not unlike this one. But someone gave me a chance. Someone believed in me. He squeezed Tyson's hand. Now it's my turn to do the same. Robert Thompson stepped forward. Father, you should be resting. In a minute. The old man waved him off. First, I want to tell Tyson something. He pulled the boy closer. That shirt you ruined? It was worth maybe $20. But what you did with it, that was priceless. More cars were arriving outside. News vans now, their satellite dishes extending toward the darkening sky. Someone had set up lights in the front yard, turning night into day. Ms. Williams, Robert Thompson said, would you and your family be willing to say a few words to the press? Share your story. She looked down at her cleaning uniform, smoothing the wrinkles with shaking hands. Like this. Exactly like this, Mr. Thompson said from his wheelchair. Let them see the real story. A hardworking mother. A boy who gives his only clean shirt to help others. This is the America people need to see. Sophia had climbed in her mother's lap, staring wide-eyed at the cameras. Marcus stood by the window, watching the growing crowd outside. Tyson, Robert Thompson said, before we go out there, are you ready for how this might change things? Once this story airs, the borrowed shirt suddenly felt heavier on Tyson's shoulders. He thought about tomorrow, walking into school, everyone knowing. The whispers, the stares, the questions. But then he looked at his mother's face, saw the hope there. Looked at his siblings, who might have different opportunities now. Looked at Mr. Thompson, alive and alert because of one simple choice made in the morning fog. I'm ready, he said, and was surprised to find he meant it. The front door opened again. Camera flashes erupted like lightning. Reporters called out questions. The neighborhood kids pressed against the police barrier that had been set up, phones recording everything. Remember, Mr. Thompson said softly, patting Tyson's hand. You didn't just save my life this morning. You reminded us all what really matters. Robert Thompson moved to the door, gesturing for the family to follow. Shall we? Tyson's mother stood, straightening her uniform one last time. She took Sophia's hand, reached for Marcus with the other. Together, she said. They stepped out onto their front porch, into the bright lights and rolling cameras. The crowd cheered. Mrs. Rodriguez wiped tears from her eyes, still holding her coffee pot. And there, under the evening sky, turned bright as day by the media lights, surrounded by luxury cars and cameras and crowds, Tyson realized something. This morning, he'd had only one clean shirt. Now he had none. But somehow, he'd never felt richer. The next morning hit like a tidal wave. Tyson's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages, notifications, friend requests from strangers. The local news played the interview on repeat. His family on their front porch, his mother dignified in her cleaning uniform, Robert Thompson's arm around his father's wheelchair. Tyson, breakfast. His mother's voice carried up the stairs, different somehow. Lighter. He found her in the kitchen, still in her robe, making pancakes. Real pancakes, not the instant mix kind. Mom, don't you have work? She turned, spatula in hand, smiling. Mr. Thompson called this morning. Said I should take a few days off. Paid leave. The envelope sat on the counter, still surreal in their modest kitchen. Inside, a check that could change everything, paperwork for Oakland Prep, and a handwritten note from Richard Thompson. Marcus burst in, waving his phone. Tyson, we're trending. Look how many views. The video was everywhere. Local news, social media, morning shows. Oakland boy sacrifices only shirt to save billionaire's father. The headlines made him sound like some kind of hero. Is it always going to be like this now? Sophia asked from her seat, syrup dripping from her fork. A car honked outside. Not their mom's old Honda. a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. "That's your ride to school," their mother said. Mr. Thompson insisted. "Said it's safer with all the media attention." Tyson looked down at his clothes. Another borrowed shirt. But this one new, delivered early this morning from some expensive store he'd never heard of. "Mom," he hesitated. "What if I mess this up?" She put down the spatula and pulled him close. Her robe smelled of their cheap laundry detergent, a reminder that less than 24 hours ago, they'd been counting coins for dinner. "Baby, you got us here by being exactly who you are. That's all you need to keep being." The driver honked again, politely. "Go on," she said, straightening his collar. "Make me proud." Just like yesterday, the SUV's interior smelled of leather. The driver, a man named James, nodded professionally in the rearview mirror. "Oakland Central or Oakland Prep, sir?" The question caught Tyson off guard. "Sir?" "Central," he said. "I need to talk to the principal first." Outside his regular school, a crowd had gathered. Students pressed against the fence, phones out. Teachers tried to maintain order. "Would you like me to escort you, sir?" James asked. "No, thanks. I got this." He stepped out into a storm of flashes and questions. "Tyson, how does it feel to be a hero? Did you know who Mr. Thompson was? Is it true you're transferring to Oakland Prep?" Principal Harris met him at the door. "Come in, Tyson. Let's talk in my office." The halls fell silent as they walked. Through classroom windows, he saw faces pressed against the glass. Was it only yesterday he'd walked these same halls in shame, wearing a too big lost and found shirt? "Quite a day," Principal Harris said, closing his office door. "I got calls from the superintendent, the mayor's office, even the governor. Everyone wants to know about the boy who gave up his shirt." "I need to take that math test," Tyson blurted out. Principal Harris blinked. "The test? Tyson, you're probably transferring to Oakland Prep. Their academic standards are different." "Maybe, but I studied for this test, and I want to finish what I started." A smile crossed the principal's face. "You know, that's exactly the kind of thing that made you help Mr. Thompson in the first place." He checked his watch. "Ms. Chen's class starts in 10 minutes. I'll let her know you're coming." The whispers followed him to class. Kids he'd known since kindergarten stared like he was a stranger. Even Ms. Chun seemed different. Her usual strict demeanor softened. "Are you sure you want to take the test today?" she asked quietly. "Yes, ma'am." He sat at his usual desk, took out his pencil, the same one he'd carefully sharpened for yesterday's test. The same problems waited on the page. For 15 beautiful minutes, everything felt normal again. Then Richard Thompson's voice came over the school PA system. "Attention students and faculty of Oakland Central. This is Richard Thompson." Pencils dropped. Head snapped up. "Yesterday, one of your students taught me something valuable. He showed me that character isn't about what you have. It's about what you're willing to give, even if it's your only clean shirt." Tyson felt his face burn as every eye turned to him. "So today, I want to give something back. I'm establishing the Tyson Williams Scholarship Fund. Every year, 2 students from Oakland Central will receive full rides to the college of their choice. Because everyone deserves a chance to show who they really are." The room erupted. Ms. Chun wiped her eyes. Someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. "Additionally," Mr. Thompson continued, "I'm donating $1 million to upgrade Oakland Central's facilities. New computers, books, sports equipment, whatever's needed. Because Tyson showed me that great hearts can come from any school." The entire building seemed to shake with cheers. In the hallway, lockers banged as kids celebrated. Even the always composed Ms. Chun had given up trying to maintain order. Tyson stared at his half-finished test, vision blurring. All this because he'd stopped to help someone? Because he'd given up a shirt? His phone buzzed. A message from Robert Thompson, father insisted. Said it's not charity. It's an investment in humanity. "Oh, and he wants to know how your math test went." Another buzz. His mother, "Baby, they're saying nice things about you on TV. Your father called." His pencil snapped in his hand. His father. 3 years of silence. And now he called? The celebration continued around him, but Tyson felt cold. Yesterday's shirt was gone, replaced by expensive cotton that felt foreign against his skin. His usual seat felt wrong. Even his name sounded different in people's mouths now. Ms. Chun touched his shoulder gently. "Do you want to finish the test another time?" He looked down at the half-solved equations. "Simple math. Input and output, action and reaction. Like helping someone in need, a simple action with an outcome he never could have calculated. No, ma'am. He pulled out another pencil. I'd like to finish now. She nodded, understanding something deeper than mathematics. As the celebration echoed through the halls, Tyson returned to his equations. One step at a time, just like kneeling beside a fallen stranger. Just like pressing a clean white shirt against a wound. Just like opening an envelope that could change everything. Outside his window, the media trucks still lined the street. The world wanted to talk about shirts and heroes and miracles. But right now, in this moment, Tyson just wanted to finish his math test. Because some things, like helping others, like keeping promises, like being true to yourself, those things didn't need calculating. They just needed doing. The Oakland Prep campus sprawled across the hillside like something from a movie. Manicured lawns, red brick buildings, a real football field with actual grass, not the patchy dirt lot at Oakland Central. This way, Mr. Williams, the admissions director, Dr. Martinez, led Tyson and his mother through heavy wooden doors. Their footsteps echoed on polished floors. 3 days had passed since the Thompsons' visit. 3 days of cameras outside their house, of reporters calling, of old friends acting like new fans. Now, wearing another new shirt delivered that morning, Tyson felt like he was walking through a dream. Our class sizes average 15 students, Dr. Martinez said, gesturing to a classroom where kids in crisp uniforms sat at individual desks. No shared textbooks, no broken chairs, and each student receives their own laptop. His mother's hand tightened on his shoulder. At home, they shared one old desktop computer that crashed if you opened too many tabs. The uniform costs are covered by your scholarship, Dr. Martinez continued. As are books, supplies, and lunch program. A group of students passed by, their casual chatter dying as they recognized Tyson. The video had over 10 million views now. His old shirt had become a symbol, spawning memes and hashtags. When can he start? His mother asked. Tomorrow, if you'd like. We've already processed the paperwork Mr. Thompson sent over. Tomorrow. The word hung in the air like a bell tone. What about my friends at Central? Tyson asked. My teachers? Dr. Martinez smiled kindly. Many of our students maintain connections with their previous schools. And speaking of Central, she checked her tablet. Your math test results came in. Perfect score. His mother squeezed his shoulder again. That's actually one reason we're excited to have you, Tyson. Your academic record shows remarkable potential, despite limited resources. Here, you'll have every opportunity to develop that potential. They toured more classrooms, each more impressive than the last. Science labs with real microscopes, an art studio with pottery wheels, a library bigger than their entire house. And this, Dr. Martinez said, opening another door, is our computer lab. Rows of new computers lined the walls. In the center, a 3D printer hummed quietly. This is where our coding classes meet. I understand you've expressed interest in computer science? Tyson nodded. He taught himself basic coding using free online tutorials at the public library when they had working computers. Well, you'll be happy to know Mr. Thompson added something special to your scholarship package. She led them to a corner office where a man sat surrounded by monitors. This is Mr. Chun, our technology director. He'll be your personal coding mentor. The man stood, smiling. I heard about what you did, Tyson. Taking care of others before yourself. That's the kind of ethical thinking we need in tech. His phone buzzed. A message from Richard Thompson. How's the tour going? Robert says the coding program was your idea. Another buzz. His father again. Son, I saw you on TV. We should talk. Tyson turned off his phone. There's one more thing, Dr. Martinez said, leading them back to her office. About the scholarship fund for Central. She pulled up a presentation on her computer. Mr. Thompson wants you involved in the selection committee. Since you know the students, their challenges... Me? Tyson blinked. But I'm just the boy who gave up his only clean shirt to help someone in need. She smiled. That's exactly who should help decide. Outside her window, students crossed the quad between classes. Their uniforms matched, but they carried themselves differently than kids at Central. Like they never doubted they belonged. It's a lot to take in, Dr. Martinez said gently. Why don't we give you and your mother a moment to discuss? When the door closed behind her, his mother sank into a leather chair. Baby, she whispered, look at this place. Mom, he hesitated. What if I can't fit in here? You earned this. Not just by helping Mr. Thompson, but by every test you studied for, every time you helped with your siblings, every sacrifice you made. Her phone buzzed. She checked it, her face tightening. Your father again? She nodded. Wants to meet for coffee. Talk about your future. She put the phone away. 3 years of nothing. And now he wants to talk about your future. Tyson looked around the office. At the degrees on the wall, the view of San Francisco Bay, the leather-bound books on shelves. Everything screamed money, privilege, opportunity. You know what I keep thinking about, he said. That puddle. If it hadn't rained the night before. If Mr. Thompson had fallen somewhere else. If I'd taken a different route to school. But it did rain. He did fall there. You did take that route. She stood, straightening his new shirt. Sometimes life gives us puddles, baby. It's what we do when we find them that matters. A knock at the door. Dr. Martinez returned with a garment bag. Your uniforms, she said. We expedited the order. The fabric inside was finer than anything Tyson had ever worn. 5 crisp white shirts, 3 pairs of pressed slacks, a blazer with a school crest. There's a car waiting to take you home, Dr. Martinez said. Unless you'd like to see more of the campus? Through the window, Tyson watched students heading to their next classes. Tomorrow, he'd be one of them, walking these halls, wearing that uniform, living a life he couldn't have imagined 4 days ago. His phone buzzed again. Richard Thompson. Remember, son, the shirt wasn't what mattered. It was the heart behind it. I'm ready, Tyson said. His mother wiped her eyes, smiling. For what, baby? Everything. They left Dr. Martinez's office, their footsteps echoing differently now. Not like visitors. Like they belonged. Outside, the same black SUV waited. James held the door open, nodding respectfully. Oakland prep student now, sir? Tyson looked back at the campus, then down at his new shirt. He thought about his old one, probably still in some hospital trash bin. One shirt had opened all these doors, but it wasn't the shirt that mattered. It was what he'd chosen to do with it. Yes, he said. I guess I am. Tyson's last day at Oakland Central felt like attending his own funeral. Kids he'd known since kindergarten treated him like a celebrity. Teachers who'd barely noticed him before now wanted photos. You're really leaving? His best friend Marcus Johnson, not to be confused with his brother Marcus, leaned against the locker next to his. Just like that, Tyson pulled out his books. He'd return them today. It's not just like that. Everything's different now. Yeah. Marcus kicked at the floor. Saw your dad outside this morning. Trying to get past security. Tyson slammed his locker shut. He's not getting past anything. The halls were plastered with posters announcing the Thompson Scholarship Fund. Applications were already rolling in. 2 kids would get full college rides because Tyson had given up a shirt. Attention students. Principal Harris's voice crackled over the PA. Please proceed to the gymnasium for a special assembly. Tyson's stomach dropped. They'd warned him about this. A formal goodbye. A chance to announce the scholarship details. Richard Thompson had insisted. The gym was packed. Every student, every teacher, even the custodial staff. As Tyson walked in, the crowd parted like water. There he is! Someone shouted. Applause erupted. Principal Harris stood at the podium, beaming. Tyson Williams, please join me on stage. His feet felt like lead as he climbed the steps. Below, hundreds of faces stared up. Phone cameras recorded everything. 1 week ago, Principal Harris began. One of our students made a choice. A simple choice that reminds us all what really matters. More applause. Tyson spotted his mother in the back, still in her cleaning uniform. She'd taken a break from work to be here. Sophia and his brother Marcus sat beside her, fidgeting in their chairs. But rather than tell you about it, I'd like to introduce someone special. Principal Harris gestured to the side door. Please welcome Mr. Richard Thompson. The old man wheeled himself out, looking stronger than he had that first day. The crowd gasped. Camera flashes intensified. Thank you, Principal Harris. Mr. Thompson's voice carried clearly through the gym. But I'm not the special one here today. He wheeled himself to Tyson, took his hand. This young man didn't just save my life last week. He showed us all what true character looks like. He turned to address the crowd. When he found me, he didn't see Richard Thompson, the wealthy businessman. He saw a person who needed help. Tyson's throat felt tight. In the back, his mother wiped her eyes. That's why I'm not just offering scholarships. I'm offering opportunities. Mr. Thompson pulled out an envelope. Starting today, Oakland Central will have new computers, new books, new sports equipment, because every student deserves the chance to show their true character. The crowd erupted again. Teachers hugged. Students jumped up and down. And Tyson, Mr. Thompson continued, before you leave for Oakland Prep, I have one more surprise. He handed Tyson the envelope. Inside was a key card with the Thompson Industries logo. That's for our tech lab. Every Saturday, if you want, you can come work with our development team. Learn coding, robotics, whatever interests you. Tyson stared at the card. It probably cost more than everything he owned. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Mr. Thompson squeezed his hand. Just keep being who you are. After the assembly, saying goodbye felt impossible. Every classroom held memories. Every scratched desk, every worn textbook. Miss Chin caught him outside her room. I have something for you. She handed him a folder. Your math test. The one you insisted on finishing. He opened it. A perfect score marked in red ink. You know, she said softly, in 20 years of teaching, I've never had a student choose to take a test during their own celebration. Had to finish what I started, ma'am. She hugged him suddenly. You're going to do great things. Tyson Williams in the hallway. Marcus Johnson waited. So this is it? His friend kicked to the floor again. You become rich and famous. Forget about us little peoples. Man, shut up. Tyson punched his arm. You're still coming over tomorrow. Just because I'm changing schools doesn't mean I'm changing friends. Promise? Promise. Outside, more cameras waited. More reporters asking about the shirt, the rescue, the scholarships. But through their lenses, Tyson caught a glimpse of someone hanging back by the fence. His father. 3 years older, grayer, but unmistakable. Their eyes met across the crowd. Tyson. A reporter thrust a microphone at him. How does it feel to be leaving Oakland Central? He kept his eyes on his father as he answered. It feels like growing up. His father took a step forward, then another. But Tyson turned away, toward the waiting SUV where James held the door open. His mother and siblings were already inside. Ready, sir? James asked. Through the window, Tyson watched his father's face fall. Watched him step back into the shadows where he'd hidden for 3 years. Yeah, Tyson said. I'm ready. The SUV pulled away from Oakland Central one last time. In his new shirt, with his perfect math test in his bag and a tech lab key card in his pocket, Tyson didn't look back. Some people he was learning belonged in your past. And some things like growing up, like moving forward, like becoming who you're meant to be, those things only worked if you faced them head on. Just like helping a stranger in need. Just like giving up your only clean shirt. Just like saying goodbye to what you were, so you could become what you might be. His phone buzzed. A text from Richard Thompson. Remember, son, every new beginning is just another chance to show your true character. Tyson smiled, watching Oakland Central disappear in the rearview mirror. Tomorrow, he'd wear a new uniform to a new school. But underneath it all, he'd still be the same person who'd stopped to help a stranger. And that he was learning was the only thing that really mattered. The first test at Oakland Prep came back with a B+. Not perfect, not like his math test at Central. But Tyson stared at the red mark with pride. He'd earned this grade competing against kids who'd had private tutors their whole lives. Excellent work, Mr. Williams, Ms. Bradford said, her British accent making the praise sound extra formal. Especially considering you joined us mid-semester. 2 weeks had passed since his first day. 2 weeks of advanced classes, of clean hallways, of food in the cafeteria that looked like restaurant meals. The uniform still felt stiff, but he wore it with increasing confidence. Tyson! Richard Thompson's voice boomed across the computer lab. The old man wheeled himself between the rows of computers, looking stronger every day. How's the coding project coming? Saturday sessions at Thompson Industries had become Tyson's favorite part of the week. Real programmers taught him things no free online tutorial could match. Almost finished, sir. Tyson turned his screen to show the app he was building. a simple program to help kids learn basic coding. Remarkable. Thompson leaned closer. You designed this interface yourself? Yes, sir. Thought it might help other kids from Central who want to learn but can't afford classes. Thompson's eyes crinkled. You know, when I first started in technology, computers filled entire rooms. Now look at you, building teaching tools on a laptop. A knock at the lab door. Robert Thompson entered, carrying a thick folder. Tyson, got a minute? The scholarship committee needs your input. They moved to a conference room overlooking the bay. Applications from Oakland Central covered the table. Dreams and hopes spelled out in teenage handwriting. This one, Tyson pointed to a familiar name. Marcus Johnson. Single mom like mine. Works 2 jobs. He's brilliant at science, but can't afford lab fees. Your friend from Central? Robert raised an eyebrow. Yes, sir, but that's not why I'm recommending him. Look at his grades, his volunteer work. He deserves a chance. Robert smiled, making a note. Just like someone else I know. Tyson's phone buzzed. His mother. Baby, don't forget dinner with the Thompsons tonight. These dinners had become a weekly tradition. His mom no longer wore her cleaning uniform. She'd been promoted to staff coordinator at Thompson Industries. Sophia and Marcus came too. Homework completed in the company's daycare center. Oh, and your father called again. His mother's next text read. Says he has some business proposal he wants to discuss with you. Tyson put the phone away. Some calls didn't need answering. Everything okay? Robert asked. Yes, sir. Just family stuff. Speaking of family, Robert pulled out another envelope. Father wanted me to show you this first. Inside were architectural plans. Blueprints for a new building on the Oakland Central campus. The Thomson-Williams Technology Center. Tyson read aloud. What? Your coding program gave Father an idea. Why not bring Silicon Valley to Oakland Central? Give kids the tools they need right there in their neighborhood? Tyson stared at the plans. A full computer lab, classroom spaces, even a robotics workshop. And we'd like you to help design the curriculum, Robert continued. Since you know what those students need better than anyone. Through the conference room windows, Tyson could see the Oakland Central neighborhood in the distance. The corner where he'd found Mr. Thompson seemed so small from up here. It's a lot of responsibility, Robert said gently. No pressure to decide now. But Tyson was already pulling up his coding project. Actually, sir, I have some ideas. That evening, the Thompson mansion glowed warmly against the darkening sky. Sophia ran ahead to greet Mr. Thompson's golden retriever, while Marcus immediately headed for the gaming room they'd installed for the kids. How's the new job, Ms. Williams? Richard Thompson asked over dinner. Wonderful, sir. His mother smiled, looking younger somehow. Though the staff still gets confused when I give orders instead of taking them. They'll adjust. He winked. Just like we all do when life changes. After dinner, while the adults talked business, Tyson worked on his laptop in the library. The coding program was almost ready for testing. He'd already lined up volunteers at Central to try it. Busy as always, I see. Richard Thompson wheeled himself in. You know, most kids would be playing with their new wealth, buying video games or fancy clothes. Can't play games when there's work to do, sir. Just like that morning. Could have walked past the puddle. Could have kept your shirt clean. Could have made it to your test on time. Tyson's fingers paused over the keyboard. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stopped? I try not to think about might-have-beens. Thompson moved closer. But I do think about what is. About a young man who gave up something precious to help a stranger. About how that one act of kindness created ripples we may never fully see. Through the library window, Tyson could see his siblings playing in the Thompsons' massive yard. Sophia's laugh carried faintly through the glass. Marcus chased the dog, his new shoes flashing in the security lights. Sir? Tyson closed his laptop. Can I ask you something? Anything, son. Why me? I mean, lots of people do kind things every day. Thompson was quiet for a moment. You know what I remember most about that morning? Not the fall, not the pain, but the look in your eyes when I mentioned your shirt would be ruined. There wasn't even a heartbeat of hesitation. That's rare, Tyson. Rarer than money, rarer than success. He pulled an old newspaper from his desk. The front page showed Tyson helping him that morning, captured by someone's phone camera. This picture? Thompson tapped it. This isn't about a shirt or a fall, or even an act of kindness. It's about character, about who we choose to be when no one's watching. Or at least, when we think no one's watching. Tyson studied the photo, his old shirt, now wrapped around Mr. Thompson's arm, his concerned face as he tried to help. The morning fog making everything look dreamlike. The technology center at Central, Thompson continued. That was your idea, really. Every time you come here to code, you're thinking about those kids. About giving them the chances you didn't have. They deserve those chances, sir. Yes, they do. And that's exactly why you deserve yours. Thompson wheeled toward the door. Keep working on that program. But don't forget, sometimes the best teaching happens without computers. Later in the car ride home, Tyson watched the city lights blur past. His mother hummed softly in the front seat. Sophia and Marcus had fallen asleep in the back. His phone buzzed. His father again. Son, please. Just give me 5 minutes. Tyson started to delete the message, then stopped. Maybe some puddles weren't meant to be walked around. Maybe some had to be waded through. He typed back, tomorrow, 3 p.m., Central's parking lot, because that's where everything had changed. And maybe that's where other things needed to change too. The city rolled by a mix of old and new. Somewhere out there, in a hospital trash bin, his old shirt had probably long since disappeared. But what it represented, that moment of choice, of giving without counting the cost, that would last forever. Just like the ripples Mr. Thompson talked about. Just like the changes in his family's life. Just like the opportunities he could now help create for others. His phone buzzed one last time. His father. Thank you, son. I'll be there. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, watching his city, wearing his new uniform, carrying dreams bigger than he'd ever imagined, Tyson knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest choices. And sometimes those choices change everything. Oakland Central's parking lot hadn't changed. Same cracks in the asphalt. Same faded lines marking the spaces. Same chain-link fence surrounding it all. But Tyson had changed. Standing there in his Oakland prep uniform, holding his laptop with the finished coding program inside, he felt the difference in every breath. His father's beat-up Corolla pulled in at 2:55 p.m. 5 minutes early, a first. The man who stepped out looked smaller than Tyson remembered. Grayer. Less solid somehow. Son, his father's voice cracked. You look different. 3 years does that. They stood awkwardly, the afternoon sun casting their shadows toward each other. I saw you on TV, his father said. What you did for that old man. The scholarship. Everything. Why are you here, Dad? His father pulled out a wrinkled business plan, printed on cheap paper. I've got this idea. Tech startup. With your connections now, maybe we could... Stop. Tyson's voice came out harder than he'd expected. Just stop. A group of students passed by, pointing and whispering. Everyone knew his story now. You don't get to do this, Tyson continued. You don't get to disappear for 3 years and come back when I'm worth something to you. Son, please. I know I messed up. The gambling, the debts. I was sick. But I'm better now. Better? Tyson laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Mom works 2 jobs. Worked 2 jobs. I raised my siblings. Where were you when we needed you? His father's shoulders slumped. I was ashamed. Ashamed? The word tasted bitter. I wore the same shirt for a year because we couldn't afford new ones. Sophia cried herself to sleep asking for you. Marcus stopped talking for 3 months. I know. But things are different now. You're different. Look at you, private school, rich friends. That's exactly why you're here, isn't it? Tyson stepped closer. Not because you miss us. Not because you're sorry. But because now I have connections. Now I'm useful. A black SUV pulled into the lot. James stepping out, concerned. Everything okay, Mr. Williams? It's fine, James. Tyson turned back to his father. You want to know what I learned since you left? What Mr. Thompson taught me. His father stared at his expensive uniform, his clean shoes, the car waiting to take him to his next tutoring session. I learned that real value isn't in things. It's in choices. Tyson's voice grew stronger. When I helped Mr. Thompson, I didn't know who he was. Didn't know he was rich. I just knew he needed help. Son, but you. Tyson shook his head. You only show up when there's something in it for you. That's the difference. The afternoon light caught the Thompson-Williams Technology Center construction site across the street. Workers in hard hats moved between stacks of materials. Soon, kids from his old neighborhood would learn coding there. Would have chances he never had. I could have walked past that puddle, Tyson said quietly. Could have kept my shirt clean, could have made it to my test on time, but I chose to stop, to help, to give up something I needed because someone else needed it more. His father crumpled the business plan in his hands. That's what you never understood, Dad. Life isn't about what you can get. It's about what you can give. A bell rang inside Oakland Central. Students began flooding out, many waving to Tyson as they passed. He saw Marcus Johnson among them, clutching his scholarship acceptance letter. So no, Tyson continued, I won't help with your startup. Won't introduce you to the Thompsons. Won't pretend the last 3 years didn't happen. Then why agree to meet? Tyson pulled an envelope from his jacket. Because I learned something else too. About forgiveness. About second chances. He held out the envelope. There's a job opening at Thompson Industries. Entry level. Mail room. His father's hands shook as he took the envelope. It's not glamorous. Doesn't pay much. But it's honest work. Tyson straightened his tie. Your choice. Why? His father's voice cracked again. Why would you help me after everything? Because that morning in that puddle, Mr. Thompson asked me the same thing. Why help a stranger? Why ruin my only clean shirt? Tyson smiled slightly. Sometimes the answer is simple. Because it's right? James opened the SUV door. Sir? You'll be late for your mentoring session. Coming. Tyson turned back to his father one last time. The job starts Monday. Show up or don't. Your choice. He walked away, his shoes clicking on the asphalt. Behind him, his father called out, Son, I'm sorry. For everything. Tyson didn't turn around, but he smiled just a little. In the SUV, his phone buzzed. Richard Thompson. How did it go? Gave him the chance, Tyson typed back. Just like you gave me one? And that, my boy, is how kindness spreads. Through the tinted windows, Tyson watched Oakland Central shrink in the distance. He thought about puddles and choices, about clean shirts and dirty ones, about fathers who leave and fathers who appear when you need them most. His laptop hummed softly beside him, the coding program ready for its first class tomorrow. 20 kids from his old neighborhood would learn what he'd learned, that technology could open doors, that knowledge was power, that one person's choice to help could change everything. Where to, sir? James asked. The Technology Center? Tyson looked at his reflection in the window. The uniform fit perfectly now. The tie sat straight. But underneath, he was still the boy who'd stopped to help a stranger. Still the son who'd learned to be the man his father wasn't. Still the brother who'd protected his siblings. Still the student who'd finished his test even when he didn't have to. Yes, he said, the Technology Center, because that's where it would continue. The cycle of kindness. The chain of choices that turned strangers into family, puddles into opportunities, and one ruined shirt into a future no one could have imagined. His phone buzzed one last time. His mother, proud of you, baby. Always. Tyson smiled, watching his city roll by. Some stories end where they begin, in parking lots and puddles, in choices and changes, in the simple truth that sometimes the biggest gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected packages. Even, sometimes, in a clean white shirt that was given away without hesitation. Because that's how kindness works. That's how change happens. That's how the future unfolds. One choice at a time.